All right. Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. We are live on Rockfin and YouTube. Welcome, guys. Early chatters are in. On the YouTube side, if you want to come watch me on Rockfin, please do. I encourage you to watch me on Rockfin, where I have 300 more followers than I do on YouTube. Hilarious. I'm going to get to 4,000 followers on Rockfin before I get to 3,000 followers on YouTube. That's how heavy the suppression is. And it's only going to take me a couple of months to get there. Hilarious stuff. Anyways, guys, how you doing? Welcome. Kuro, yeah, I saw your comments about people dying on motorcycles. I feel the same way. I don't know. People that ride motorcycles have a serious death wish. I'm not talking about riding a scooter around town, even though that could be fairly dangerous, but as economical as they can be. People that ride motorcycles on the freeway are generally, just stupid-ass knuckleheads, especially in California. And I've seen a few people die on motorcycles as well. It's not pretty. Not pretty at all. What's up, guys? How you doing? William, Gene, Poppy Davis, Kiro Hikes, Basil Peterson, G. Demarest, Donald McCarthy, Cindy Seeley, what's going on? Oh, I also saw Andy the Gardener said something about Paul Beckwith having some videos out about how the Arctic is, let me see, an unknown factor is slowing down the Arctic ice melt. I wonder what that is. I mean, seriously, I do wonder what that is. I'm not being funny about that. I wonder. And again, the options or the possibilities of what that could be are so varied, right? Who knows what's going on? But let's just take it at face value. At face value, again, we don't know how the Earth is going to react, what kind of negative or positive feedbacks it's going to throw out, the Earth system, the entirety of the Earth system. We don't know what kind of factors are going to be happening in the next 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So it's really, really hard to call, even though, you can look at graphs and charts and trends, the trend lines of what's going on. You can kind of say, like, this is looking like where we're going to be in 5 years or 10 years or 2 years or 1 year. But you really, really don't know what's going to happen. And that's why I say, whatever you do, whatever you can do, everything that you can do, anything that you can to mitigate the onslaught of climate change. Because we don't know, if we get an extra 2 or 3 or 4 years of normalcy, or even 10 years of normalcy, that might be enough time for us to do, figure something out with our big brains. Who knows? But some people want it all to end, and I understand that. Some people are like, I'm tired of the human race and their foolishness. And there's, a logic to that as well, I guess. Wow, Mashi says it's a 45-minute video series and uses published research. Okay, yeah. Yeah, but this is the first I've heard of it. So, Guamashi also says the excess heat will be here. It will just get shunted around. There is no escape from it. Yes, exactly. Right. Low pressure system stalling the melt. Okay. Right. Whether it's 1 year late or 2 years late or 5 years late, it's still pretty soon. Still pretty soon. Clay Bomb, also good comment, but has it stalled? It's way thinner than 2012. Not much multi-year ice left. Good point. So we might have had the lowest extent in 2012, but we did not have, even in 2012, there was still thicker ice. So we're still on thin ice, as the saying goes. Kuro Hikes, that was my thoughts there, probably. Kuro Hikes also says, if we would even try, I would be more enthusiastic. Right. If there could even be a consolidated effort by the governments of the world, and we're going to get into something about that. Anyways, let's get into it because there's a lot to cover and I don't have a lot of time. Oh, first of all, I wanted to tell you guys that I had a weird dream the other night. So weird, I still remember it, but somehow, for some reason, I was trying to get to Svalbard, and I was going to get on a small boat in the middle of the night to go to Svalbard from somewhere. From some other location, unknown. Northern Europe somewhere, some place in Northern Europe. I was gonna go take a boat to Svalbard. And anyways, I missed the boat, and somehow I ended up in the water, and the water was extremely warm. And I was just swimming behind the boat for a long time, but it was kind of fun. I was having a good time. It was like a cross between, it was kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland. The water was like taking me along, and it was really warm, and it was kind of fun. And I was like, whee. And then I guess the boat stopped somewhere, and I got on the boat, and I continued my journey. Anyways, just wanted to tell you, and the water was very warm. That was also the weird part, but it was very, the dream was very vivid. So, Guau Mashi says a residency in Svalbard is open without a visa. Good to know. Brian Melt says, yeah, 2020 will be the lowest sea ice year, not record minimum, but whole year lowest, probably. Clay Bomb says maybe a premonition by dream. Yeah, we've all missed the boat, indeed. Yes, Poppy Davis. Anyways, just, dreams are what they are. It's kind of weird, but why it was so distinctly trying to get to Svalbard, I don't know. But I remember the other day pointing out that there was a point in the ocean near Svalbard the other day that was 61 degrees, so very warm considering the location of Svalbard. Richard Monroe says, dreams of travel are low carbon. Indeed they are. Okay, I want to read a post from Marty Mccorkle. We're going to go visit McCorkle's Corner. This is from a few days ago, but it was a really good post. And I wanted to read it, and I'm having a hard time remembering to read posts, comments when I do my video because the time is so short. Anyways, McCorkle says, didn't the mink industry take a hit? Oh, wait, is this the one I wanted to read? I don't think this is the one I wanted to read. Hold on. This is the one that I wanted to read. The powers that be are desperate to get back to the old-timey pre-2008 normal. And the power temps want to go back there at warp speed. Good luck with that, champs. They'll have a tussle of a time putting our best genie ever, cheap fossil fuels, back into his bottle for 3 fresh industrial civilization wishes. Maybe this time they'll skip the wish for forever wars. Excuse me. They'll skip the wish for forever wars. We're Comrade COVID tossed out from the old-timey wonderland this very day. Oil is still peeking right under our feet as we begin to lick the banquet tablecloth for last drippings of cheap fossil fuels. Slurp, 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 yum. Slurp, 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 yum. Delicious fossil fuels as ever, though a lot more jaw work. Namely, it costs more energy than the energy that comes out. We call this oil-sucking fracking. Fossil fuels retirement party. We envision wind turbines and solar panels operating safely under the emissions hiding principle, by which the emissions necessary to build and maintain the contraptions are thoroughly Voldemorted. That is, the emissions of renewable contraptions are the emissions whose name we dare not speak or risk being excluded from any green deer games. Not that there will be enough cheap fossil fuels left to pull off a green old deal, business as usual with a green lapel button. It takes a heap of fossil fuels to build this green world, more fossils being put into the ground than will come out. Stupid, un-American math and science. I hate energy facts on patriotic grounds, excuse me. And despite the assurance of our Ivy League witch doctors, commonly called prominent economists, one can't print energy. I've tried repeatedly, but central banks in Europe, China, and U.S. print like there's no tomorrow because there isn't a tomorrow, not one for fossil-fueled business as usual. But here's the pickle. The remaining cheap fossil fuels can and must be burned for industrial civilization not to seize up entirely like a Toyota with a broken oil pan. That necessary fossil fuel burning can't happen with right-minded people not wanting COVID to coat their internal organs in hard candy shells of platelet cells. I like my internal organs uncoated, thanks. So, to get the peasants out of their hovels and back to their McJobs, the vaccines dash madly to market, completely skipping those several years of side effects studies normally required. Side effects can't be that bad. Okay, they can. But this bait bus must get back on the road for rocking and rolling. Wait, I got it. Send in the troops. Enter stage right or stage left or best of all, stage moderate. The military, hooray, we're saved. Salute your vaccinator general. Thanks for your service, guys. American peasants, and get that iffy, unstudied vaccine, even if the cure is worse than the disease. Ha ha. A couple of my ribs just parted from their moorings. Decades of poor planning makes for good comedy, and human non-planning is coming full bloom this decade. So be ready to laugh at the craziness and to duck from the bullets as we try to get back to pre-2008 Wonderland by building a fossil fuel constructed green world. Spoiler alert, we will consume less and be fewer. That's the unpatriotic math of the situ. But act surprised as that inevitability unfolds. A single "I told you so" as things unravel might get one shot with a poorly tested, hurried, militarized vaccine. Good stuff from Marty Mccorkle as usual. And I also wanted to read a comment from Wendy DeLise. She says, at 9:15, the narrator of Black Bear News declares, they're suppressing all of my social media platforms. That suppression was to be expected, indeed. Newsflash for those people who do not already know, climate change activist channels too frequently and too severely get suppressed now in the early 2020s. There are trending internet memes that apply to the newsflash, trending internet memes declaring that water is wet, that a floor is made out of a floor, and that a wall is made out of wall. One climate change news, you hear anti-vax stuff, NASBNABs. One climate change news suppression story is that in the USA, there has been essentially no news coverage that in the last half of October 2020, the Philippine Sea had a surface temperature about 3 degrees Celsius warmer than 100 years ago. Indeed, there is no new news coverage of that. There's no new news coverage that a spot in the ocean next to Svalbard is 61 degrees Celsius, 61 degrees Fahrenheit, excuse me. And that is extremely unusual. And probably frightening. Boiled Rope Lamppost says leverage being censored. Okay, I don't know. How do you do that? The more you try to leverage it, the worse it gets. Anyways, every 3 degrees Celsius increase raises the cap on typhoon wind speed by about 20%. The result in the Philippines was typhoons Goni and Vamco in November 2020. In terms of Greenwich Mean Time, initial landfall of Typhoon Goni happened late in October 31, but in local Philippine time, the initial landfall was in the early part of November 1. Regardless of the time zone used, Typhoon Vamco made an initial landfall that was very definitely a November landfall. Satellite records of eye temperatures of Typhoon Goni indicated that typhoon temperature reading of perhaps as high as 30 degrees Celsius. Wind speed near time of initial landfall for Typhoon Goni was 195 miles per hour, which is almost exactly 25% of the speed of sound. Excuse me. My opinion is that if Black Bear News is being suppressed by the fossil fuel people, then Black Bear News should get even by giving publicity to the still suppressed story of typhoons Goni and Vamco in the Philippines. Sure. As well as to the related suppressed news stories that there is a resulting typhoon damage that still has not been repaired. Even now, at the end of November 2020, in and near the main island of Luzon in the Philippines, the island on which is located the Philippine capital city of Luzon. And there you go. I just actually gave air to that news. So there you go. Thanks, Wendy DeLeese, for the update. There are so many things to cover as far as the subject of climate change and all the things that it entails. Extreme weather events, the fallout, the cost, the human cost, the monetary cost, the ecological cost, the eventual extinction of everything on the planet if we keep going with what we're doing. So many things involved with climate change. It is extremely broad and complicated subject. So, I try to cover all the things that I can in the very short time that I have. If I could do many videos a day, I would. If I could do them all day, I would. I cannot do that. Not at the moment. But I try to cover all the stuff that I can. So yes, all of these things are happening. And yes, sea surface temperatures in many parts of the earth are not what they should be and causing all these extreme weather events. There are many, many factors involved. So many things. I try to cover them all. It's very difficult. Nasbanab says the military has to vaccinate people because all the doctors are dealing with COVID. I mean, sure, that sounds logical. I'm just thinking that people are a little concerned about the military administering the vaccine and to what level they're going to force people to get the vaccine. And I think that they're rightly concerned about that. That's not anti-vax necessarily. That means, like, anti-vax is not the same as vax skeptical, or at least wondering about the time it took to develop the vaccine and the possible safety issues around it. It's just, saying the word anti-vax is extremely just, it's just a trigger point. It's like just something to throw out there to kind of smear people with a name. Anti-vax, equating to conspiracy theorists, weirdo, asshole who's putting people's lives in danger for even raising questions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, whatever. And maybe that's not even your point, Nasbanabs, but I'm just responding to your comments. Lightning Rod says lots of people died from smallpox. Sure, of course they did. Of course they did. Yeah, the thing to remember is that vaccines can be effective. Some vaccines have been tested for years to get a handle on their side effects. And there have been cases where vaccines have been tested on people and it has gone very, very wrong. There have been, negative effects from vaccines that have been well documented. So there's, it's a mixed bag, and I think that's called science, where people do tests on things, or tests on drugs, or tests on medicines. Why, right? And sometimes, and this is well documented as well, right? Sometimes they rush things out that they don't understand the full effects of the side effects from. Right? They don't understand the damage that some medicines can do or vaccines can do to people. And they go, oopsie. Case in point, there is a fund that is run by the U.S. government that is billions and billions of dollars, worth billions of dollars, that is set up to pay people out that make claims about damage from vaccines, right? So the U.S. government understands that people get hurt from vaccines, and they set up a fund to just pay people out because it's cheaper to just settle the case than go through lawsuits from people that have claims about damage from vaccines. So, it's a nuanced issue. So just saying like all vaccines are good is false, or saying all vaccines are bad is false. Again, anti-vaxxers are idiots and weirdos. No, false. Again, we must always trust the government when they tell us what is good for us. False. Again, the blanket assumptions and presumptions and placing things into little tidy boxes to make it easier for you to sleep at night, or easier for you to get on a soapbox, or whatever it might be. You got to think around the corners. Lightning Rod, I have never had a flu shot yet. I'm thinking about I might get one. I've never had a flu shot either, and I'm not even thinking about getting one. not no way, not no how. Right. Andy the Gardener, COVID has a 90% recovery rate, so I'm not seeing the benefit. Well, maybe the benefit might be, the people who have contracted COVID, some people have long-lasting, long-term ongoing effects from the virus, and sometimes it kills people. So some people, I guess it's a matter of a wager, right? It's a bet. It's like, well, if I get coronavirus, do I want to wager that I'm going to recover 90%, or do I wager that I'm going to be in the 10% that die? I don't know. If you had a 10% chance of dying on an airplane, a lot of people would not get on an airplane because 10% is kind of large. 20% experience some long-term problems, says Judy Truitt. Yes, Kiro Hikes called the vaccine court. Vaccine manufacturers are immune to any kind of litigation. I wonder why. So yeah, I mean, but the thing is it is a discussion that people are having, and they are within their rights to have the discussion, and they are right and smart and intelligent and thinking human beings to have a discussion around it. To not have a discussion around it, to shut down the discussion. Oh, anti-vax. I don't like what I'm hearing. Is unintelligent, uninformed, myopic, whatever. I mean, you can say no, I don't agree, but if you're saying we can't possibly have this discussion, or this is wrong, it's wrong what you're doing. I would say that you are not contributing to, the higher intelligence of the human species. Right. Boiled rope lampposts, taking the vaccine and not taking the vaccine both carry a risk. Judy Truitt says the son of a friend has gotten the virus twice. Good Lord. That really super sucks. And I'm wondering too, they're probably going to find more and more like genetic predispositions to, getting the virus and having it really take you down, or getting it multiple times, or getting it and dying. it's ongoing. It's an ongoing situation. But and then that's not. There's so much more to the situation around coronavirus than even just the the study of the disease and or the vaccine. Robert Rajo says big money for pharma. Yeah, well, if you can't be sued, if you're free from any kind of litigation, yeah, big money, big time. Basil Peterson, we are all going to die, indeed. Oh, okay, let's go. I got to move on. I'm getting stuck on this. Really stuck on this. Sorry about that. Anyways, let's get into some stuff. Let's see. Good. I retweeted this. Hundreds of young activists hold mock COP or COP to fight for climate change action. We need to listen to the science. Of course we do. But this is good follow-up to this was from PFD Earth. No, we don't need to listen to the science. They need to listen to the science. The so-called world leaders who are really world sandbaggers and corporations. With corporations, climate science does not influence their behavior much. Corporations are misanthropes. Really good response to this. Because believe science. Yes, listen to the science. For you guys need to listen to the science, but we can ignore the science whenever we want to. When we're promoting fossil fuels and or industrial civilization and or capitalism and or consumerism and or whatever it is we want to promote. And I was reading a really interesting article. This goes in line with something I was reading today. They're talking about in this article, really great article. What is it called? It's called Invisible Manipulators of Your Mind from getpocket.com. They're talking about a few people who were developing kind of analytics around how people think, using intuition as opposed to, using their emotions, emotional thinking as opposed to logic, the other type of thinking. And what did they? The thing I wanted to get to, I'm not really summing up this article very well, but the thing that I wanted to get into was something that they said. But anyways, it's talking about Cambridge Analytica and social media and all, how all these tech companies and social media companies and political organizations and governments and intelligence agencies, right? They're all using this new data mining or data analytics, behavioral analytics to influence and or influence certain people to think certain things or suppress other ideas. It's all very interesting. All kind of going in line with what I was talking about as far as the social dilemma yesterday, but they were talking about the military in Afghanistan, military leaders using, I got to find the part. Using behavioral economics or insights from behavioral economics to, let me get to the exact quote, sorry. They wanted to empower individuals in Afghanistan who had the right ideas but the least amount of authority. And I was like, wow. They want to do this in another area, a place where they're at war against their enemies, right? Empower. This sounds so, equitable, right? It sounds like equity. It sounds like, oh, we're trying to empower the people that have the right ideas with the least amount of authority. Oh, that sounds, super awesome. Like what we're supposed to be doing in our society here at home. But we don't do that. The government doesn't want to empower people with the right ideas but the least amount of authority. That's not what we're doing. That's not what we do in our own country. The people who are in power, who have the authority, want to remain in power and have the authority, and they don't give a shit about the people that have, quote unquote, the right ideas, right? The people who believe the science, the people who are, hey, maybe we need some action on climate change. Maybe we need to do this right away so that we don't destroy the whole planet. Oh yeah, we got you. That's a wonderful idea. Those are the right ideas, but and we hear you. But we're gonna go do this other thing instead. But let me just let you know that we hear you. It's absolute bullshit. So only when we think it's to our benefit do we want to empower the people with the right ideas. But when it's not to our benefit, we're not going to do that. Anyways, good tweet from PFD Earth. I like that. Okay, we're just late as hell. A lot of rambling on my part, and I apologize. So anyways, Vancouver-based company planning oil drilling, possible fracking plan for the Okavango region. I talked about this a little bit yesterday. This is Natural Geographic. Hundreds of oil wells could come to cover a huge expanse of Namibia and Botswana in what has been called possibly the largest oil play of the decade. Canada, super progressive, progressive-y typey prime minister, right? Supposedly Canada is, socially democratic country where they're trying to, supposedly they're supposed to listen to, they're, in theory, empowering the people with the right ideas, but not really. When it comes down to actual ultimate control by the corporations and especially the fossil fuel companies, conservationists and community leaders in the spectacular Okavango wilderness region of Namibia and Botswana are raising alarms over oil and gas exploration and potential production that they fear would threaten the water resources of thousands of people and endangered wildlife. Recon Africa, a petroleum exploration company headquartered in Canada, has licensed more than 13,600 square miles of land in the two countries. The homepage of the company's website says its intention is to open a new deep sedimentary basin, in other words, a new oil and gas field. So, we're really gonna work on lowering our emissions, guys, here at home. Canada, probably has some kind of equation they've worked out, how they've shown that they're lowering their emissions in order to report positive things back to the IPCC. But, but there's a company in Canada that is going to go exploit a part of Africa for some new oil and some new gas. The Okavango Basin, as the area is known to geologists, is larger than the country of Belgium, and Recon Africa says it could hold up to 31 billion barrels of crude oil. Oh, we've got to have it. We must have this oil. More than the United States would use in 4 years if consumption remained the same as in 2019. We're going to burn it up. It's possibly the world's largest oil play of the decade, oilprice.com, an energy news site, said in September. Recon Africa's initial goal, already approved by the Namibian government. They were like, sold Canadian, chunk. They just stamped that. They were like, yep, do it, go for it. Because probably somebody in the Namibian government got a very handsome, got wired a very handsome sum of money from an offshore account somewhere, I'm sure. Is to drill test wells roughly 1.5 miles deep in the country's northeast, starting in December 2020 to determine the presence of exploitable oil and gas. Experts who have reviewed the Namibian environmental impact assessment for the test wells point to the serious problem in the way that it was carried out. Meanwhile, approval for a drilling permit in the licensed area in Botswana is underway. The approval is underway. We are wiring the funds immediately. If Recon Africa finds oil, a February investor presentation says, then the ultimate goal is to drill hundreds of wells in the area and open at least some of them using modern frack stimulations. All right, we're going to go Frack Africa. They should just call it Frack Africa, not Recon Africa. Frack Africa. A reference to fracking, the controversial practice where underground shale is injected with high-pressure fluid to crack open the rock and release oil and gas. So, yes, they're wiring the officials and the Namibian government some money, lots of money from an offshore account, so that the Namibian government, the people, the officials there, cannot listen to science or not listen to what the people want, right? Excuse me. But, you know, let's see. The threat from oil drilling to one of the planet's most diverse ecosystems and to more than 200,000 people who live in the desert region boggles the mind, said William Odendahl, the former Land, Environment, and Development Project Coordinator of Namibia's Legal Assistance Center, a public interest law firm based in the capital, Windhoek. Frack Africa's drilling areas overlap with a multi-country conservation park, 6 locally managed wildlife reserves, and 1 UNESCO World Heritage Site, and could affect another, the Okavango Delta nearby. So, yeah. You know, if we're going to destroy all these wilderness areas around us in the process, we don't care. The Okavango region is home to the largest herd of African elephants left on Earth, and myriad other animals, African wild dogs, lions, leopards, giraffes, amphibians, and reptiles, birds, and rare flora, who altogether are worth much, much more than the oil they're going to suck out of the ground could ever be worth. All right, you guys get the picture. It's not a pretty one. I'm going to check in with my Rockfin folks. The Rockfin folks. Anybody watching on Rockfin? We got 2 viewers on Rockfin. If you can, join me on Rockfin. Say hello. Give a greetings. Let's try and build some Rockfin viewership up. Basil Peterson says this is unprofessional behavior. Gene says, Kevin, I'm requesting a day of actions, ideas, organizations, XR, etc. Okay. A day of action. You're requesting it of our viewers, the channel, or somewhere else? If you could, please define, or if you want to send me an email to blackbearnews@gmail.com, that would be great. Scott Andrews, Canada is looking up all the bad ideas from the U.S. Well, yes. Every country is looking up all the bad ideas from the U.S. because, you know, we all know the ship is sinking, but everyone wants to live like we live. We all want to gobble down 5 Earths worth of resources. They all do. Everyone does. That's, you know. The equity argument is awesome on many levels, and I agree with it on many levels, but the equity argument is also tied up in everybody living like we live. And that's just not possible. That's just impossible. So when you're talking about equity, you also have to talk about the fact that anybody who's living in a developed country is going to have to, accept within, on some level, the idea that we're going to live with much, 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 much less. like live with the live in the standard of living that one would, one would live in India, at which one would live in India or Africa. So we can't export our standard of living to the rest of the world. We must import the standard of living of the rest of the world to us. Are you on, Rock Fan? I am Sweetleaf. Anybody saying hey? What's up, Sweetleaf? Thanks for coming through. Good to see you. All right, let's move on. Got one more thing to cover. I know this has gone very long. And no one wants equity like the wealthy and the corporations. No one wants equity more than the corporations and the fossil fuel companies and the military-industrial complex. They really want equity. I'm joking, of course. Anyways, man, it's just there's so much to cover and so much to talk about. It's very difficult to get through all these. Anyways, I was talking about this yesterday too. Australia is ranked the worst of 57 countries on climate change policy. We're just going to quickly go through this. Australia is the worst performing country on climate change policy, according to a new international ranking of 57 countries. The report also criticizes the Morrison government for being a regressive force internationally. One of many regressive forces. The 2020 Climate Change Performance Index, prepared by a group of think tanks comprising the New Climate Institute, the Climate Action Network, and German Watch, looks at national climate action across the categories of emissions, renewable energy, energy use, and policy. Across all 4 categories, Australia was ranked as the 6th worst performing of the 57 countries assessed. On the assessment of national and international climate policy, Australia is singled out as the worst performing, with the report saying that the re-elected Morrison government has continued to worsen performance at both national and international levels. All over the planet, we see people in power in major industrialized countries who give not 2 shits about climate change, right? It seems to be a trend. I wonder why this is happening. I wonder why. Australia, Brazil, US, UK. But the funny thing is even the countries that seem to care or seem to have, more progressive leaders in place, they still don't care. They're still destroying the environment. They don't care. But of course, listen to this. Listen to the science. Yeah. Anyways, the dismissal of recent IPCC reports, the government not attending the UN Climate Action Summit in September, and the withdrawal from funding of the Green Climate Fund underpinned the overall very low performance in the climate policy category. Australia scored the lowest possible rating of 0.0 compared with the highest countries. Portugal, which was ranked best for its climate policy at 97.8%. The report praised Portugal for its ambitious target of net zero emissions by 2050. So ambitious. I think there's like so many other countries that have a net zero emissions target of 2050 and a 55% emissions reduction by 2030. Well, even if they made it to 55%, hand clap. But how are they making it? Let's again discuss how they might be making it to that 55% emissions reduction. Are they going to account for outsourced or external emissions in their economy? That's what I'd like to know, is if that's an accounting shell game or if that's real accounting. Anyways, and the upshot of all this, when you don't care about climate change, and you're proud about it, which, it seems to be that the universe or Mother Nature, karma, whatever you want to call it, has a sense of humor. And what happens is you get just obliterated by extreme climate change consequences, I guess. Here we go again. This is going to get so much worse while Australia continues to producing coal. Sydney and New South Wales. Well, let me just go back here for a second. Swelter through another day of above 40 C heat. State braces for second day of scorching weather and fire danger with gusty southerly forecast to arrive later on. So here we go again. One more time with Australia experiencing, they're about to enter into another just insane wildfire season, I'm sure, and many more. Australia is the leader, in suffering climate change consequences. And, and you wonder why. Is it karma, or is it just, whatever it might be, good old-fashioned cause and effect? The weekend marked the first two consecutive days above 39C recorded in Sydney since 1960. Sydney has sweltered through its hottest November night since records. Hold on, what's the date on this? This is from yesterday. Since records began more than 160 years ago, before temperatures again climbed above 40C in the city on Sunday ahead of a cool but gusty change. The temperature dropped to just 25.3C at 1:09 a.m. on Sunday at Sydney's Observatory Hill, and rose above 30C shortly after 4:30 a.m. Wow. A previous record for the warmest November minimum temperature was set in 1967 at 24.8C. Wow. On Sunday, temperatures in Sydney peaked at 42.6C at Sydney Airport at 1:20 p.m. as extreme heat posed a fire danger across New South Wales. 3 watch and act alerts had been issued for fires in New South Wales by 4:30 p.m. with ground and water bombing crews battling to save homes from a fire at Northmead in Sydney's west. Footage aired by ABC TV showed smoke billowing from one house. Firefighters and water bombing aircraft are working to contain the fire and protect homes. Here we go again. It's happening. Did you think it was going to stop happening? That's 108 degrees Fahrenheit, 42.6. Youch. Central Sydney hit 40.5 Celsius on Sunday afternoon as northwesterly winds held back the sea breeze, while Penrith reached 40C. Sydney Airport again topped the list with 42.6 C. But, ignore climate change at your peril. We all will. Oh, maybe not all of us, but, most of us will ignore climate change at our peril. Some of us will pay attention and be aghast and amazed at the stupidity of humans in total. Thank you, Yin Yang. I appreciate you. Yin Yang says, I like this channel. The host knows his stuff. Some people might disagree with you, Yin Yang, but I try to know my stuff. If anything is worth doing, also Yin Yang, if anything is worth doing, do it with all your heart. Buddha. Indeed. Brian Milt, Southern California has been in red flag warning for the last few days too. 10% humidity, gusts to 65 miles per hour. Yeah, we had a good amount of wind the other day, couple days ago. And yeah, low humidity, and it's basically going to just continue for the next 2 weeks. This generally happens in Southern California at some points during the winter where we just every day is exactly the same. We hit about 75, lows about 45 or 50, and it's just endless, whatever you want to call it. It's certainly not winter, but it's quite dry right now, yes. So there is an increase in fire danger, but not as hot as it usually is. So we'll see if something happens. Human Love Solidarity wants to nominate Raz as Ombudsman of BBN. Anybody else want to nominate Raz as Ombudsman? What does an Ombudsman do? We don't know, but we certainly welcome the stewardship of, really capable ombudsman. Anyways, guys, I have reached the end of my time, or I actually blew past the end of my time a long time ago. My apologies. I don't know. I feel like I didn't talk about anything, but this video ended up being incredibly long. But it is what it is. Anyways, guys, thank you for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. I will be back at the regular time tomorrow of 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until next time, peace.